There we go. All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. It's a really real pleasure to welcome you to the CSIP-A Masterclass. I'm Clarissa Gettigan. I'm the Operations and Development Coordinator at the Institute of Innovation and Advanced Learning, or as we all like to call it, the Institute, or IIAL. We're very excited to have you here as part of this session to bridge sustainability theory and real-world impact. We know your time is valuable, and we're here because you're ready to move past theory and make a tangible difference. So a little bit of who we are. IIAL is a Canadian research institute with a higher ed mandate. We bridge research, certifications, and industry innovation. What we do is support professionals to create sustainability impact and business value. Our purpose is very simple. It's to equip you with the tools and standards that you need in order to lead responsibly and innovate sustainably. Whether it's through our research initiatives, our professional certifications like CSIP and CSCIP, or our applied industry partnerships. Our goal is to help every participant move from awareness to action. What makes us unique is how we connect applied research with global standards. IIAL is powered by our applied research and whole chain international standard. It's a framework that ensures traceability, transparency, and ethical performance throughout the entire value chain. Through this, we enable you to measure and verify real sustainability impact, not just report on it, but to prove it. So today's masterclass continues that mission, where we'll learn how to turn compliance into advantage and theory into action. We're incredibly grateful to have our innovation leader, Paolo di Bartolomeo, with us today to guide this session, showing us exactly how sustainability can drive real innovation and measurable results. So just before we begin today's session, just a quick reminder, at the end of the class, we're going to be doing a live draw for the full CSIP-A scholarship. So this is our way of thanking everyone who stays with us until the end. So make sure you're here when we announce the winner. Okay, so Paolo, you can go ahead and share your presentation whenever you're ready.
Okay. Okay, so hello, and a warm welcome to everyone joining us for this masterclass. We're delighted to have participants from Canada and the United States, from Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and Peru, or even hopping the pond to welcome the United Kingdom and even a little further in India. It's inspiring to see such a diverse group gathered together across so many time zones. So thank you for making the time to be with us here. So before we begin, a couple of quick notes. This session is designed to be interactive. So please use the chat or raise your hand function and share your questions and thoughts along the way. Today, we'll focus on practical steps to move sustainability from good intention to measurable innovation. I'll share tools, cases, and a short checklist you can apply immediately. Before we dive into the content, let me take just a minute to introduce myself and a bit about the perspective I'm going to bring to today's session. So my name is Paolo di Bartolomeo. I spent more than 20 years working in finance, supply chain, and sustainability across Canada, helping organizations bridge the gap between sustainability commitments and real measurable results. My work has spanned corporate ESG strategy, national stewardship programs, and teaching global sourcing and procurement and sustainability at Seneca Polytechnic. I thought, and through it all, one lesson that stuck with me. Process is built on action, not aspiration. That's the spirit of today's session, turning theory into impact. So with that, let's look where we're headed today, how we're going to spend our time together. I want to give you a quick sense of the format so you know what to expect. We'll move between three modes: insights to frame the big picture, tools to give you a practical takeaway, and real-world examples to show how all this plays out in action. Along the way, I'll invite you to reflect upon in the chat and share your perspectives. We'll use quick pulse checks and reflection prompts to keep things interactive, so feel free to join in and enjoy our journey. So here's the journey. First, we'll set the stage, exploring why good intentions often fall short and what really holds organizations back. We'll then go beneath the surface to uncover the hidden drivers of ESG, the operational and cultural forces that separate those who perform from those who simply report. And from there, we'll frame compliance not as a burden, but as a bridge to innovation and competitive advantage. And next, we'll get practical. I'll show 3 tools and a checklist so you can use right away to drive measurable impact. And then we'll dive into 6 real-world case studies across retail, finance, and logistics and more to see how others turning theory into action. And finally, we'll close the call to lead, because the future belongs to those who move from awareness to agency. And we'll leave time at the end for some Q&A and reflection. So feel free to drop questions into the chat as we go. So let's begin where most organizations do, with bold commitments. But as we'll see, good intentions alone don't drive change. We'll explore why that gap exists and what it takes to close it. So we'll start by setting the stage. Over the past few years, we've seen a surge in sustainability commitments, net zero targets, ESG pledges, bold declarations. But here's the reality. Too often, the results don't match the intent. This is what we call the sustainability gap. The space between what organizations say and what they actually do. And that's not just a reporting issue. It's a leadership challenge. In this opening section, we'll unpack why that gap exists and what it really takes to move from good intentions to measurable actions. Because that's what today is all about, turning theory into impact. So how we close the gap? Let's begin by reflecting what sustainability really means and what it could become. So let's take a moment to ground ourselves in the theme of today's session. Sustainability isn't just about reducing harm, it's about creating value. But too often, there's a gap between what organizations commit to and what they actually achieve. Today is about bridging that gap, moving from theory to impact. And my goal is for you to leave here with practical tools, frameworks, and examples you can apply immediately. Not just meeting ESG requirements, but to lead through them. Before we dive in, I want you to take a moment of reflection. Ask yourself, and you don't need to answer it out loud, is your sustainability strategy creating real impact or just more reports? Hold on to that thought, because over the next hour, we're going to unpack what it really takes to move from good intentions to measurable innovation. And we'll come back to this question at the end and see how your answer might have shifted. So what does it take from theory to impact? Let's explore the forces that shape the shift and the opportunities they create. So what does sustainability really mean? Too often it's treated as a box to check, glossy reports, bold targets, net zero pledges. But real change comes when they move from intent to measurable innovation. That means rethinking value, designing products differently, retooling supply chains, and making decisions with integrity. The pressure is real. Regulators want transparency. Investors want return. Employees want proof. And customers want purpose. But there's the opportunity. Pressure isn't just a challenge, it's a catalyst. It pushes us towards innovation, competitiveness, and leadership. Let's do a quick pulse check. When you hear the word sustainability, what's your first thought? You can type C into the chat if it's compliance, I if it's innovation, or both if you're unsure. some innovation, some compliance, and some both, not too sure. So what are leaders responding to this shift? Well, let's take a look at what happens when inside the boardroom and why ESG is rising on the CEO agenda. So let's look what's happening inside boardrooms and why is it rising on the agenda. From what's inside and what's visible and what's driving real change behind the scenes. ESG success isn't just about what we report, it's driven what happens underneath operations, culture, and innovation. This section is about uncovering those hidden drivers that separate true impact from surface level change. So according to a KPMG 2004 CEO Outlook, nearly 1 in 3 Canadian CEOs rank ESG as their top operational priority. That's more than double the global average, so the intent is clear. But here's the gap. 63% admit they struggle to embed ESG into their business model, and nearly 3/4 don't expect measurable returns for at least 3 years. Why the lag? Well, ESG isn't just about disclosure. It's about rethinking how value is created. It's hard, but it's also where opportunity lies. Engagement prompts you to think about how your organization and where does ESG sit today. It's compliance. Is it a compliance function? Or is it a boardroom? Or is it in a department? Or is it in its own silo? We've seen challenges the CEO face. Let's explore how one company turned this into execution. RBC as a live example. RBC has embedded ESG directly into lending, investments, and advisory services. Excuse me. They're not just talking about ESG. They're financing transaction solutions and reshaping how capital influences the entire markets. In this case, of moving from priority to practice to advantage, and proves something important when CEO treats ESG as a strategic driver. It isn't a cost, it's a competitive advantage. If your financial partner considered ESG in every decision, how would you change your business strategy? To understand what separates leaders from laggards, we need to go deeper. Let's explore the sustainability iceberg. This is the iceberg metaphor and what really is driving change beneath the surface. We talk about sustainability. Most of what gets attention is what's visible on top. Reports, commitments, rankings, and glossy announcements. That's the tip of the iceberg. But beneath the surface lies real work, and it's much bigger. Operational change, retooling supply chains, aligning employees, redesigning products, even reshaping culture. That's where transformation and long-term value really live. The risk is focusing only on the visible tip of the iceberg. The opportunity is leading beneath the surface. Where do you think your organization currently spends most of the effort? Above the surface? Below the surface? No judgment, just a quick check. You can throw it into the chat if you'd like. Just think it. So how do we lead beneath the surface? Well, let's start by rethinking compliance, not as a burden, but as a launchpad. Compliance for many organizations, it feels like a burden, something you have to do. But what if we reframe it? Most forward-thinking companies are turning compliance into a strategic advantage. Instead of asking, how do we meet the minimum requirements? They're asking, how do we use this to drive innovation, build trust, and lead change? That's the mindset shift. Compliance isn't the ceiling, it's the floor. It's the foundation we build on. And where we treat it that way, it becomes a launch pad for measurable impact. So how do we turn obligation to opportunity? Well, let's explore the mindset shift and make that possible, and the framework for that as follows. To go a step further, compliance is important, but it's not just a baseline. It's the cost of entry. The risk is stopping there, treating ESG as a cost, burden, or checkbox. But the opportunity, that's where things get interesting. Leading organizations are using compliance as a catalyst. They're asking, what insights can we gain from this data? How can we use these requirements to drive innovation? How can we build trust by doing beyond what's required? That's the mindset shift from obligation to opportunity, and the foundation for everything we'll explore next. Think about your sector. What's one compliance requirement your organization faces that could spark innovation if reframed? So how do we make that shift? Let's break it down into 3 mindset changes that can help us turn compliance into strategic advantage. So let's make this shift real. If you want to turn compliance into a strategic advantage, we need to change how we think about it. Here are 3 mindset shifts that lead organizations are making. So first, from minimal, visible, viable disclosure to maximum strategic insight. Instead of asking, what do we have to report? Ask, what can this data tell us about our operations, risks, and opportunities? The second, from cost center to innovation engine. Compliance just doesn't protect, it can reveal inefficiencies, spark redesigns, and open new markets. And third, from external pressure to internal alignment. Use ESG requirements to bring finance operations and sustainability teams together, not just to comply, but to collaborate. These shifts aren't just psychological, they're practical. They're the foundation for the tools we'll explore next. So let's see what it looks like in practice. Here's a quick example how one company turned compliance advantage into innovation. Unilever was required to report its water footprint, a standard compliance exercise. But instead of just publishing the number, they dug deeper. They discovered that rinse cycles in detergent use were a major contributor to water consumption. That insight sparked innovation. They developed low rinse and no rinse detergents. The result? Reduced water use, lower environmental impact, and new product lines tailored for water scarce regions. This is what it looks like when compliance becomes a trigger for innovation. It's not just about meeting requirements, it's about using them to rethink product, unlock efficiencies, and expand market reach. So, how do we make this kind of shift happen in our own organizations? Well, let's explore practical tools for real world that can help you move from theory to impact. We've talked about mindsets that separate leaders from laggers. Now it's time to translate those ideas into action. This section is about how practical tools and decisions frameworks you can use right away to drive measurable results. Let's dive into what I call the leadership edge, the practical side of turning compliance into advantage. This section is about practical tools, frameworks, and methods you can start using right away to move from theory to measurable impact. These tools are designed to make sustainability tangible, not just in your strategy, but as in your daily decisions. We've explored the mindset shift. Now let's look at the strategic levers that help turn ESG from obligation into opportunity. These levers from foundation for practical tools we'll explore next. So to build a sustainable advantage, leaders need more than strategy. They need the right mindset. Now this framework helps 3 leadership capabilities that turn compliance into opportunities. First, you identify hidden risks, your awareness, the ones others might overlook. Whether it's supply chain vulnerability, reputational exposure, or regulatory blind spots, sustainability leaders see these early and act before they escalate. Second, make ethical decisions, your integrity that drives trust. And trust is now a new form of capital. Every transparent, value-based decision you make compounds over time, strengthening your brand and your stakeholder relationship. And third, lead with innovation. That's the action. Most successful organizations embed ESG principles directly into their business model, not just as an add-on, but as a driver of growth and differentiation. Together, these 3 practices, Risk awareness, integrity, and innovation form the leadership edge that turns responsibility into a real competitive advantage. Now, to put these leadership principles into action, I'll share 3 practical tools you can use to help apply them in your own organization. How to identify hidden risks, make ethical decisions, and lead with innovation. We'll turn that into practice. So for the next few minutes, we'll explore 3 practical tools that bring those principles to life. These tools are practical, adaptable, and actionable. You can use them to strengthen your strategy, to make better decisions, and demonstrate measurable impact. Think of them as your starter kit for turning theory into real sustainable results. Tool 1, the material mapping, aligns stakeholder expectations with your business priorities. The innovation opportunity scan identifies where sustainability can spark new value. And impact verification ensures your ESG claims are credible, measurable, and trusted. As we walk through each tool, think about which one could make the biggest difference in your organization right now. So we'll start with tool number 1, materiality mapping. It helps you focus on what really matters. In any organization, there's a long list of sustainability topics you could report on, but not all of them are equally important or impact. This tool helps you cut through the noise. Materiality mapping helps you identify the issues that are both most important to stakeholders and most critical to your business success. Here's how it works. On one axis, you plot your business impact, things that can influence performance, risk, or cost. The other, stakeholder importance, what matters to your investors, customers, employees, and community. The top right-hand corner of your matrix is where these 2 meet. It's your strategic focus zone. That's where actions, deliverables, most value, and is visible. For example, one company might be carbon emissions. For another, diversity and leadership, or supply chain transparency. The point is to move from where we have to report everything to we'll focus where we can make the biggest difference. This tool gives you clarity, and clarity is the first steps towards real impact. Without this time of clarity, ESG efforts start to become scattershots, trying to do everything but not moving the needle anywhere. So here's a quick reflection. What one issue your stakeholders care about that your organization hasn't prioritized yet? If it were on your map of your organization, what would land you in your upper right-hand corner? The area of high impact and high importance. This tool helps you focus your energy where it counts. That's the first step towards measuring your impact. So we have identified our priorities. Now let's explore how compliance and reporting actually sparks new ideas and solutions. That's where we look at the innovation opportunity scan. It's about reframing how we look at compliance. Most organizations see compliance as a burden. The leading organizations see it as a trigger for innovation. Every time you're asked to disclose, to measure, to improve on something, that's an innovation to think differently. And here's how that works. You start with compliance requirement. For example, new emission disclosure rule. Ask, what could this unlock? Maybe it's an opportunity to develop a low carbon product, new product technology, or improved efficiency. Finally, identify the value created, whether it's cost reduction, new revenue streams, or enhanced reputation. When you scan for opportunities in this way, compliance shifts from being a box-ticking exercise to being a springboard for creativity and competitive advantage. The innovation opportunity scan helps you see what others might miss. And that's where true leadership shows up. So here's a quick thing for you to reflect on. Think of a REIN's compliance requirement your team faced. Was there an opportunity hidden in it? Maybe a process improvement, a new partnership, or a new idea that came up from the pressure to change? Did you act on it? That's the value of doing and looking for your win-win in this situation. So we've taken tool 1 and tool 2. Now let's look at the third tool, how to verify and communicate impact. so your progress earns trust and credibility. Innovation is only powerful when it's credible, and when there's final tool, the impact verification will come in. So impact verification is about closing the loop, and it's all about credibility. Once you've focused your efforts and identified opportunities for innovation, you need to make sure your progress is both real and credible. Impact verification helps you move from good intentions to measurable, verifiable results. It starts by defining clear metrics. What will success will look like, how you will measure it. Then you track those results using consistent, reliable data. And finally, you communicate that impact transparently and honestly so stakeholders can see the difference you're making. Because here's the truth. Without verification, even good work risks being dismissed as greenwashing. Verification isn't about providing compliance, it's about earning trust. And in today's ESG landscape, trust is the new currency. Organizations that can prove their impact don't build credibility, they gain a competitive advantage. And impact verification is how you turn progress into proof and proof into power. Now that we've explored these tools, let's anchor them in a practical checklist, and you can use immediately back at your work. Your quick guide applying these tools in your organization. If you scroll into the chat, you'll actually see the checklist is available for you in a PDF format that you can download and keep for yourself. But this is from Theory to Impact Checklist, a simple, actionable guide you can use with your team tomorrow. It captures the core of what we're exploring today. You start with aligning strategy and purpose. Start with clarity. What are you trying to achieve? And what does it matter? Can someone just double check and someone's not seeing it in the chat? It should be at the very top of the chat. If you scroll to the top, you should see 2 PDFs. But if you don't, let us know and we'll make sure you get a copy at the end of this presentation. So as I was saying, you start with clarity, what you're trying to achieve, and what does it matter? Every efficient sustainability effort begins with purpose, right? Then you identify the hidden icebergs. Use materiality mapping to surface the risks and priorities that matter most. What's beneath the surface often defines your success. You then have you integrate innovation. You look for the win-wins. Where can sustainability drive new value, new products, or new efficiencies? Compliance can either spark or create growth. You verify and measure your results. Don't just claim impact, prove it. Use data and third-party validation and transparency to ensure credibility. Because as I said earlier, because without verification, even good work risks being dismissed as greenwashing. And you communicate and scale for impact. Share what works, build trust, use your wins to drive momentum, and inspire others across your organization. This is your anchor, your tool to turn insights into real-world actions. So I'm seeing some people had difficulty not seeing the PDF in the chat. We'll make sure you get a copy of this, or we'll upload it at the end of this presentation. So I'm sorry if you don't see it. So let's see how this plays out in the real world. Through cases, and we'll look at 6 sectors that turn compliance into innovation. So we've explored the mindset shift, the strategic levers, that practical tools. Now let's look how real-world organizations are putting it into practice. 6 companies, 6 sectors, 6 lessons. Each face ESG pressure, whether from regulators, investors, customers, or internal values. Each found a way to turn that pressure into innovation, efficiency, and leadership. These aren't perfect stories, but they're real stories. They reveal patterns that you can apply in your own organization. So let's start close to home with Loblaws, Canada's largest retailer, and see what it looks like to drive scale and change. So at Loblaws, where I worked directly on ESG integration in the past, The challenge was clear. Compliance pressure around packaging, waste diversion, and emissions were mounting. At the same time, the business demanded efficiencies and cost reductions. The risk was that ESG was going to become a silo, disconnected from operations. Instead, we built systems, not silos, embedding sustainability into logistics and procurement. That meant cross-functional alignment, not just sustainability teams working in isolation. The result was measurable: stronger compliance reporting. We reduced costs through packaging redesign and waste diversion and operational efficiencies. ESG shifted from being an obligation to being a competitive advantage. Loblaw shows us that impact at scale requires cross-industry collaboration. No one company can solve system challenges alone. Okay? Now that we look at a very different model, Patagonia, where sustainability isn't just embedded into the business itself. So Patagonia shows that what looks like when a sustainability is more than the program. It's the business model itself. They embedded activism into their governance and operations. From regenerative cotton to lifetime product guarantees, every decision reinforces their environmental and social values. They built a brand around activism, transparency, and ethical sourcing, and they've done it without compromising growth. The result? Deep customer loyalty, strong brand equity, and a culture that attracts purpose-driven talent. Patagonia just doesn't respond to ESG pressure, they lead with it. It's a reminder that sustainability can be a growth engine, not just a compliance strategy. Patagonia demonstrates that purpose-driven loyalty values aren't just a nice to have, they're a growth engine. Now let's look at IKEA, where circular design and supply chain innovation are helping scale sustainability across a global footprint. So IKEA has refined and redefined how global retailer can integrate in circularity. A company that's scaling sustainability through design and supply chain innovation. Facing pressure around waste emissions and resource use, IKEA made circularity a core strategy. That meant designing modular furniture, launching take-back programs, and rethinking materials to extend product life. But they didn't stop at the product level. They pushed sustainability deep into the supply chain, working with the suppliers to reduce emissions, improve sourcing, and verify impact. Results was lower costs, higher efficiency, and a brand that leads to circularity. IKEA teaches us that to move the needle, we must embed sustainability into design, not just operations. So let's shift to logistics and see how Purolator turned emission pressure into fleet innovation. So at Purolator, a Canadian logistics company facing a growing pressure around emissions and urban sustainability, their response, innovation. Purolator invested in electric delivery vehicles, built Canada's first zero-emissions urban delivery hub, and optimized routes to reduce fuel use. They weren't just pilot projects. They were part of a broader strategy to embed sustainability into operations. The results: lower emissions, improved delivery performance, and stronger stakeholder trust. ESG became a driver of logistics, innovation, not just a compliance checkbox. Purolator reminds us that technology can be a catalyst for both efficiency and sustainability. It's not a trade-off. So now let's look at the financial section. We'll go back to RBC and how ESG data produced innovation to lead with transparency. Excuse me. RBC, one of Canada's largest financial institutions, highlights the financial sector shift. Financial sector shift. Tongue twister. In the financial sector, ESG leadership starts with data, and RBC leaned into that. They strengthened climate disclosures, launched ESG-linked loans and investment products that built internal capacity to assess sustainability risks. They weren't just reporting upgrades, they were strategic moves to build investor confidence and drive product innovation. The result: stronger governance, better stakeholder trust, and a leadership position in sustainable finance. RBC shows the power of capital finance accelerates the transition when ESG is embedded into core strategy. And for our final case, let's turn to the food sector. Let's see how Maple Leaf Foods embedded sustainability into its entire business model. So we'll close this section with Maple Leaf Foods, a Canadian company that takes ESG leadership to a global level. They didn't just add sustainability to their strategy, they embedded it into every part of their business, from framing practices to packaging logistics and product innovation. ESG is part of every decision. Maple Leaf Foods became one of the first major food companies to achieve carbon neutrality, and they're committed to science-based targets to go even further. There aren't just claims, they're verified, measurable, and publicly reported. The results? Operational efficiency, brand differentiation, and climate leadership in a sector that's under growing scrutiny. ESG isn't a side project here, it's the business model. And Maple Leaf Foods proves that bold commitments and transparency can reset industry standards and move entire sectors forward. Now that we've seen six examples across 6 sectors, let's step back and look at the pattern, what ESGs consistently did differently. Across 6 companies, from retail to finance to food, we saw consistent leadership behaviors. They embedded ESG into core decisions, not just reporting, but product design, procurement, logistics, and governance. They use compliance as a catalyst. Pressure becomes a spark for innovation, not a constraint. And they verified and communicated impact. They don't just say it, they prove it, and they share it with transparency. Which of these behaviors feels most urgent for your organization right now? Now let's shift from case studies to your content and explore how to apply these insights in your own organizations. So as we close, as we get to the end of this final section, this is where it all comes together. We explored the mindset shift, the strategic levers, the tools, and the case studies. Now it's about leadership, what it looks like in action, and how it can be part of shaping the future. So this section is about moving from awareness to agency, from understanding sustainability to truly leading through it. Because the future won't be shaped by those who understand ESG, it will be shaped by those who act on it. As we move into this final section, think about what leadership means in your context. What does it look like to lead through sustainability, not just to support it? Let's look at what this leadership means moving from obligation to opportunity. This is the real call to leadership. The leaders shaping the future aren't the ones treating ESG as a compliance checkbox. They're embedding it into strategy, culture, and innovation. They're using it to build trust, to create value, and lead change. It's not about obligation anymore. It's about opportunity. The organizations that understand this shift will define the next decade of business. And the leaders who act on it, that's you, will shape what comes next. Think about your own organization. Is ESG still a requirement, or is it starting to become a source of advantage? So let's take a moment to reflect on your own strategy and actions and what you can do next. Let's return to the question we opened with. Is your sustainability strategy creating real impact or just more reports? After everything we covered, tools, the cases, the frameworks, where do you see your organization now? Are you still in compliance mode? Or are you starting to move forward towards innovation and leadership? What one specific action could you take tomorrow to move closer to impact? It could be starting a conversation with your team, mapping your material issues, or identifying one innovation opportunity. If anyone would like to share, please go ahead, put it into the chat. I'll open that up and take a look. This is how transformation starts. It's not with a 5-year plan, but one intentional step. So I'm going to open up the floor to your questions. I'd like to hear from you. What's coming up for you as you think about applying these ideas in your work? Maybe as a barrier you're facing, a conversation you're trying to start, or a tool you're unsure how to use. There's nothing off limits. Just give it a thought. You can use the chat, and I'll scan it. And as each of you registered, we've asked what you have a question for me. So I have those questions, and I'll pull them up. I'll answer them, and see if some of them also spark the questions. Is there a disconnection between the two? The two what? Sustainability. Oh, currently in most organizations, yes, but you shouldn't be. You should be seeing sustainability as an innovation, as what you can move things through. The one question that came through, in your experience, what strategies have proven most effective for embedding sustainability in companies' core culture and core operations? Well, the key is to move sustainability from a side initiative to being part of everyday decision making. The most effective strategies I've seen combine three things: integration into business processes. You tie sustainability to procurement, product design, performance metrics, so it's not optional. You want leadership alignment. Senior leader models behavior and link sustainability goals to overall business objective. And employee ownership. You want to engage your employees at all levels, connecting sustainability to their daily work and rewarding progress that creates a cultural transaction. What role do you see effective governance playing in further ESG? Delivering E and S should not start with G. Governance is important. And I agree, without proper governance, a lot of things just go out. There are rules to adhere to. So I think governance is important. You want to make sure that, and that's where governance, compliance tie into each other. Compliance, you're checking some boxes. So there are rules and regulations you need to follow by. And if you look at a leadership of the very bottom of the ladder is, what do we have to do not to be in jail? And that's what a lot of companies try to check that box off. The idea is, what is the next level? How do I turn that challenge into innovation? Not just checking the box. And you'll see that thing. And yes, perfect. In some companies, it's difficult to convince the board of directors to adopt. So how do we convince them? By showing real, tangible results. I believe that once you have shown that it's not a challenge, they can be based on as I read the questions, are these not based on ROI? They can be. What's the return on investment? But it's also reputational, employee engagement, productivity, turnaround. That will in turn build your ROI. Environmental social actions are good for our stakeholders. I believe so. As you start improving your overall sustainability goals and what you're achieving and where you're directing them to, it's perfect that those actions on your environmental, social, and governance actions will turn around. And they're all, the three legs of a stool. And part of that is your employee engagement. So sorry, as we come in the chat. I agree. Cecilia had a great question. Should we start with the governance? And governance is your compliance, right? And as we saw, as we check with those compliance issues, what we need to adhere by, do you take a look at those requirements as a challenge or just as something to check off? If there's something to check off, you're not going there. Well, ethics and integrity, sorry, ethics and integrity is where compliance or self. I love your questions. Ethics and integrity are lacking lately in many business worlds, but they turn around and will come back. I believe that as you build your sustainability, your ethics, your DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, those are all key measures any organization should be looking at. And by building that into your core values, you're building the way. Remember, if you're just checking the box on a governance issue saying, here, we've met it, then what else? But if you can take that and provide more value, then you're going to get your S&G, E&S. So yes, you want to start with compliance, and this helped to meet regulatory compliance. Yes, because as you're looking at what's required, you are trying to meet them. Anyone who's trying to avoid them, that's definitely not ethical, not showing your integrity. The idea is, yeah, 9 times out of 10, governance is the first pillar. I think I answered. Okay. So to answer the question on the screen that came in earlier, engagement comes when people see personal relevance and a shared value. So the effective method is co-creation approach. Involving teams early is shaping initiatives rather than just announcing and dropping it down on them as a mandate. Companies that start with storytelling and recognition, when employees see peers being credibly and celebrated for sustainability contribution, it builds momentum. It also makes the impact visible. Campaigns or quick wins that show progress, people stay engaged and they believe the challenge is real and meaningful. We're living in a political and environmental crisis with green costs across all sectors. That said, how do you see the future of sustainability when many initiatives are expensive to implement and or take long term to pay off? I would say that the quick fixes right now is just trying to meet the regulatory compliance and not innovation. I think you will find more and more benefits by thinking it through and looking what the challenges are and what are the innovations, challenges, and opportunities that face you from these challenges. I see someone typing, so I'll go to the next question while they finish their words. So someone asked about real-world case studies, example where sustainability is transformed into innovation. Have they achieved and what's the impact? So hopefully the 6 cases we showed you, and I showed you, is a great example. The 2 that are dear to me and I really love is, one is Patagonia. They shifted their entire model around circularity and transparency, encouraging customers to repair instead of replace. That move just wasn't about reducing impact. It became a powerful innovation in brand trust and customer loyalty. And the other one I have to say is Loblaw's journey with its national recycling programs. By turning regulatory compliance into collaboration with municipalities and suppliers, they helped build the industry-wide system that reduced costs and increased efficiencies. So this is where a perfect example where regulation or governance is the first thing they drove through. How to meet the regulatory compliance, and they did collaboration with other companies to meet those industry advantage. So both companies gained competitive advantage, and innovation came from asking, How do we solve this environmental challenge in a way that creates value? And that's the question when you're looking at, especially in currently right now with the current stakes. Things are going to be expensive and may take a long term. But how do you solve that that's going to create value for your business? How to prevent the challenge disconnect a company from its sustainability and innovation. The challenge is to keep everyone up to date, current, and working on the problem together. I believe where if you set something up in a silo, where it's sustainability is an afterthought, it's one person's team, and they don't talk to anyone else, that's your challenge. Getting those people into the talking with finance, logistics, HR, when it's embedded with everybody and is trying to figure out how everyone works together, that's where you take that disconnected company and bring it back. I say a disconnected company is definitely someone who's working in silos. And what they need to do is tear down those silos and look at more cross collaboration. How does logistics and HR work together? How does finance and procurement work together? Is there a chance that regulations conduct innovations as an engine to achieve sustainability goals in all fields? I believe so. As those regulations come in, if you just look at those regulations, like I'm saying, if you look at the regulations and saying we just have to meet them, then you're not going to see the challenges and the growth and the how to achieve sustainability. It's changing your mindset to look at these challenges as what's the opportunity we can benefit, meet our goals, and even achieve that, go further. So one thing, this was a very interesting question that came in, and how do you account and design for real value from strategy that includes real sustainability initiatives when leaderships, especially in a company traded companies, have turnover an average every 2 years? What do you do to get a champions in the initiatives, and which ones do you prioritize? So the key is to design for resilience, not a personality. If sustainability in your company depends on one leader, it collapses when they leave. So you build governance, structures, reporting mechanisms, and external commitments that outlast leadership changes, right? Your champions, ideally a cross-functional collaboration, a CFO, a COO, an HR, supply chain, not just the chief sustainability officer. They're embedding responsibilities across departments, making initiatives stick. You work on prioritization, focus on the sweet spot where regulatory risk, financial performance, and stakeholder expectations all overlap. For example, emission reduction and supply chain resilience often tick 3 boxes, right? Another effective leader is external accountability, committing to publicly communicating it publicly through frameworks like TCFD or ISSB ensures continuity because the market expects updates even if your leadership changes. So, if you have, in Europe, the regulatory requirements are coming down. And if you're committing to those regulatory commitments and your leadership changes, well, you're still required to file those reports. So that's where you want to build your external accountability. Sustainability needs to be treated not as a project, but as a part of the company's license to operate and what sustains it over a leadership cycles. What do the role of digital platforms and emerging technologies like AI and cloud ERP play in making sustainability data actionable, not just for reporting, but for real-time decision making? Well, traditionally, sustainability data was siloed and backwards looking. You often used it only as a reporting once a year. Digital platforms changed that by making data integrated, real-time, and decision-ready. So AI helps you spot trends, predict risks, and optimize resource use. Whether that's energy, logistics, or procurement. You have cloud ERP systems where you can integrate sustainability metrics with financial and operational data so leaders can see cost benefits and make decisions in place. And IoT sensors and automation, they capture real-time energy use emissions or waste flow. So you can you can act on it immediately, not months later. Right? So the real opportunity moving from compliance to reporting and to performance management is what happens. It's not what asking what happened last year. What can we do to improve tomorrow? I am unfamiliar with this project, ROI's 2005 update launches. I'm not aware of this, but I thank you for sharing. I will definitely take a look at it and um, take a look at how it is. I'm not too sure if anything is similar in Canada. I know there's a bunch of initiatives, and they are working. So there are multiple programs across Canada that are working towards things. How can I find best practices and contact and learn from them? Well, the fastest way to look to your industry peer networks and collaborations, right? So some examples are Global Compact, WBCSD, or local sustainability councils often provide case studies and direct access to practitioners. You can benchmark reports like from consulting firms like PwC, McKinsey, BSG, or NGOs publish annual insights on best practice leaders. These often list companies you can reach out to. You can use your own LinkedIn strategically, search for sustainability leaders in your sector, reach out with specific respectful questions. People in this space are surprisingly open to knowledge sharing, and don't underestimate academia and professional certifications. Right? Programs often invite guest speakers from companies recognized as leaders, giving you a direct learning channel, hopefully like tonight. And I have one more for you at the end of this presentation that you may be interested in. Thank you, Marcello. There is the Sustainable Business Impact UN Global Compact Network for Canada that is available. Perfect. And last one that came in, what is the most important skills for finance and accounting professionals who want to integrate sustainability into their work? Well, coming from finance, the most valuable skill is around connecting sustainable data to financial decision making. Moving from compliance reporting to value creation, materiality and ESG literacy, understanding which environmental or social factors have a real financial impact or performance risk. So a lot of times when you're looking at sustainability, you're looking at determining risk. What's the materiality? A lot of that is financial auditing type of knowledge. So if you're familiar with finance and auditing and going into a company and auditing their books for their financial year ends, a lot of that skill set is the same type of knowledge you would use in determining sustainability. So hold on, before we go that, is sustainability a limit to innovation or a catalyst for that in our world? I say it's a catalyst. I don't believe it's a limit. I believe we only have one planet. And what we do with it is what is. What is, sustainability is to not create harm, to create good, and to benefit, the future and our next generation. It's doing something for today that I'm not going to see, but later generations will. Any Star Wars fans out there thinking to Andor, I do this for sunsets I will never see, along those lines. But if you know the reference, that's a sustainability challenge. He's doing something for the future. It's an action. It's the same goal. So as we move on, we want to wrap up and highlight some next steps for those who want to deepen their expertise and turn these ideas into practice. And I believe, Carissa, did you want to jump in here? Is this where you wanted to jump in?
I'll take the next one.
Next one. Okay. So this is the CSIPA certification, the Certified Sustainability Innovator Professional Program. Okay. It's applied a four-module learning journey, 32 live hours guided by real-world cases, tools, and frameworks. In Module 1, you build your foundation, thinking innovation, sustainability, and digital transformation to strategic value. Module 2 focuses on progress, how to embed sustainability across the entire innovation lifecycle using proven tools and frameworks. Module 3 is about application, exploring how innovation can be driven by knowledge, user needs, or even crisis situations to develop sustainable products and services. And finally, Module 4 is where it all comes together, capturing value through sustainable business models, ventures, and inclusive innovation. Designed for professionals who want not just to understand sustainability, but to lead innovation that makes it real. And I'm going to turn the next slide over to Clarissa.
Perfect. Thank you, Paolo. And thank you for that really lively Q&A session, everyone. That was really nice to see all that chats coming in. So yeah, before we move into the final session, final part of the session, I just want to take a moment with everyone to kind of let you know that at the Institute, we believe that education is not just about the content, it's about creating real value and empowering professionals for not only the future, but for today. And we wanted to, as a thank you for being part of this masterclass, offer a 25% off discount plus a 1 free year of membership for the CSIP-A designation so that you can stay connected and continue growing and be a part of the CSI community. So you can scan this QR code here and you can visit our LinkedIn page to follow us or message us directly if you'd like more details. You can also visit our website as well so you can see, but if you need, if you'd like to go ahead and accept this offer, just let us know because we have your names down, you've registered, so this discount is available to you. And then Paolo, if you could just go to the next slide as well. I just want to do that one too.
And just before we do, I apologize to everyone. I never hit send on the documents. They're in the chat right now. Both the checklist and the case study reference sheets are now in the chat. My apologies.
Okay, thank you. Perfect. Yeah, so I also wanted to have everyone do a feedback survey. That way we can get your names in for our free scholarship. So if you enter in the feedback form, is just 2 questions. Go ahead and fill that out, scan the QR code. I will take those names live and I will go ahead and do the draw. We'll find out in a few moments who that winner is. So we'll take a few moments to have everyone scan this and we'll play the waiting game, get everyone have that form finished. I know we have a few people in here, so we'll just wait for everything to come in. Should have put on some elevator music while we waited. Fantastic. I'm seeing the submissions roll in. I'm going to keep an eye out on this, get a few more people in there. I want to make sure everyone has a chance to get their name drawn. So if you haven't done so, please go ahead and scan that QR code, and then you'll get a free scholarship for the CSIP-A program. That's a really good question. Is there a link for people to fill out if they're on their phones? I can copy the URL now and send it in the chat.
Sure.
There you go. All right, we'll just wait a couple more minutes and then I'll go ahead and do this.
And those are, hopefully you all have the case study. You've been able to download it. And if you scroll through the chat, there's a couple of great links. Thank you for posting them. Some great reading for this weekend. Yeah, thank you.
Alrighty, so I think we've waited long enough for everyone to do the form. I'm just going to go ahead and enter everyone in. So the winner of the CSIP-A scholarship will be Leigh Thompson. So Leigh, go ahead and check our LinkedIn. We'll be announcing you as our winner. Congratulations. You get the CSIP-A program at no cost. So you'll be getting the full scholarship to go ahead and do this program. And we will be reaching out to you. Okay, Paolo, if you would like to go ahead and take over. Thank you.
Perfect. So whether your ESG journey has already leading change, today was about building clarity, confidence, and community. So as we know, the certification is there if you want to go deeper, but no matter what, the real impact starts on what you do next. So let's close with a message to carry forward, one that captures the heartbeat of this session. From theory to impact is not just possible, it's necessary. Organizations that act now will define the future of business, and the leaders who step forward with clarity, courage, and commitment will shape that future. One action today can start a ripple that transforms your organization. I want to thank you for your time and energy and your leadership. And let's keep them inspired. Let's keep building the future together. And on a final note, before we close, I want to say thank you so much for your time, your participation today. It's truly an honor to have you with us. We believe that learning does not stop at the end of a session. We're excited to invite you to join our brand new LinkedIn community. It's a space where we'll keep the conversation going around sustainability and innovation. So this was that last thing where you wanted to connect with people. Here's one more avenue. And if you'd like to get early access to upcoming events, exclusive discounts, and updates on our programs like the CSIP-A, just scan the QR code on the screen. We'll love for you to stay connected. Thank you for their journey, being part of this journey. Some of you have already reached out via LinkedIn. Thank you. If you do, I'm always interested. Just send me a note. Send any of us a note, and we'd be happy to connect. And that's anything. So any final questions before? I think that's it, and we'll wrap it up. Larissa, do you